Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, desktop environment, application. We also just chat about any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with Ubuntu. And with me today, I have Sean, Eric, Jinda, Vince, Ben, Colin, Eris, Cruz, Terry, Gaston, although I don't know if that's actually his name because he turned off his camera as soon as I said his name, and Schickel. So how is everybody?
Excellent.
Doing awesome.
What's this almost healthy obsession with Ubuntu?
Oh, oops.
Is
I mean,
that what I heard?
Did I say Ubuntu?
You said Ubuntu.
This must have been a mistake. Well, be sure to do the straw poll if you have not done so yet. It's if you have to pay for your a distribution, like to continue to use a distribution, what will be the frequency of payments? I think that's something like that. Eris, I may have messed up the. If forced to pay for distribution of choice, what is the time interval of payments that would be ideal? Want to credit Sean there for this poll idea. So thank you, Sean. You rock.
Happy to help.
Well, it makes the show more fun. So on the dock for today, we're going to do talk about that straw poll. Do our application Appetizer. It's a potluck, so whatever applications you might have there, do you want to talk about? If we run out of time, we got some news we can throw in there and do our last call. But first, what are we doing on Linux and tech? Well, I wanted to talk about my time at the Ubuntu Summit. So I was at last week. I got back this past Monday, and so I had a great time at the Ubuntu Summit. I was invited to go out there, and so I flew out to Latvia, Riga, Latvia, the capital there, and I got to meet basically like all my childhood heroes. When I say childhood, I mean like childhood in Linux heroes, if that makes any sense. So the travel wasn't too bad. It was about 10 hours out there. And when I got there, I actually face-to-face met Michael Tennell. Like I've been, from Tux Digital. I've seen him now. Like I've worked with him now for, 4 years. And I actually got to see him face-to-face. So we had to fly 10 hours on the other side of the country, other side of the globe, I should say, to see each other as opposed to driving 10 hours. But anyway, so it's cool to see him. I also got to meet face-to-face Popey and Wimpy. That was really cool. I got to meet Mark Shuttleworth, the Ubuntu man, the CEO of Canonical. That was really fantastic. And then also Maru Gaspari, he actually works for Ubuntu now, so I got to meet him. Like he's kind of like my brother from another mother that lives in Taiwan, but he's actually Italian, and so it's actually really neat to meet him face-to-face. And then I don't know, it was just really cool just meeting all these people. Also, like if anyone here used Proton, like playing games. Yeah, so I got to meet do you know Glorious Egg Roll, that project? So I got to meet him. I got to meet actual Mr. Glorious, I called him. He didn't particularly care for that name, but he thought it was funny. And also I can't remember his name offhand, but he does he works for Codeweavers, and he does he works on okay, it's almost like it's a Arc something is his name. Heiler is his last name. He's Finnish anyway, but he does all the integrations in Proton. So every time there's a new release of Proton, that's him doing it. So I got to meet a lot of these people who basically make Linux happen, make Proton happen, make all these wonderful things happen. Also the developer for the Heroic launcher. Anybody here use the Heroic launcher in Linux? So I got to meet a couple of developers that work on that as well. So that was really cool to meet these people. Also, the guy who's working on Asahi Linux, and if anyone is familiar with that, the porting of Linux to the M1, the Hector Martin, he did a pretty cool presentation on that process as well. I didn't get to meet him, but I saw his presentation, I should say. He wasn't there. It was a remote thing. But anyway, so that was also very cool. And also Nextcloud Frank something from Nextcloud. He was also there. I got to talk to him. He's a little bit pessimistic about AI in the future, even though they just integrated like AI into Nextcloud and their mail clients and everything. A little pessimistic, but it was very funny. He's very German about it. It was pretty great. So anyway, point of that being, I think the Ubuntu community is absolutely wonderful. Even though I showed up there wearing OpenSUSE stuff, nobody cared. It's like whatever, and it was just tons of fun. So if you get an opportunity to go to something like the Ubuntu Summit, yes, Eris, Frank, Carl, Sheck, something. Unless it's like Jones or Smith, I really have a hard time with last names. But anyway, it was really neat meeting these people. DreamWorks had a great presentation as well on their system they use called Moonray for their rendering and whatnot. So anytime, I think from 2014 onward, they've been using an open source base for their rendering engine and whatnot, and that's all. You can go and download it and use the exact same system that they use. Probably not the exact same formula because that's it's probably a little bit extra special sauce in that. But anyway, that was very cool seeing the presentation they did as well. The Ubuntu Touch folks, they had a pretty neat little stand there and with a lot of different phones and whatnot on there. Also, Fairphone, someone from Fairphone was there to present about the new Fairphone 5 Framework. Actually, a very funny story. So, I had a developer there from Framework, but I didn't know who he was initially. Not developer, yeah, he's a developer, he's a firmware developer. But so a lot of people had frameworks there, and I recently got a framework, and I really enjoy using the framework. And so I see there's a guy there. He's got his framework partially apart, and so I just started talking to him, just kind of gushing about how much I love the framework, and how I'm using mine, and how and the ports and what ports I swap out, and just kind of going on and on. I says, "How long have you had your framework?" And I look at his name tag, and he's from Framework. And then I felt kind of stupid, but anyway, so that was a fun introduction there. And anyway, but people are great. And it was a real neat environment in Riga, Latvia.
So you're a convert now? Is that what I'm seeing with this beanie here?
Well, that was part of the swag bag I got, and I thought, it's cold out, and I'm gonna kind of play, kind of a little bit of Colin-ish on this, be Colin, and I'm not, I have a different hairline than Colin, but I just wanted to, wear a beanie because, well, it's cold. So, and I thought it'd be funny if I said Ubuntu instead of OpenSUSE, just to see if I got any rise out of anybody. So apparently just you, Eric.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
I was the only one paying attention. No,
it's all good. No, I think
you got me on that one because I thought, well, it was either a slip or he's playing around with us and he's got the beanie on, so something's going on here. I wasn't aware that you went, so that's awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, also Rudra, from Ubuntu Unity, he was out there too, so I got to hang out with him as well, and that was pretty cool. Really nice young man, so super nice. I can't say anybody out there was anything but nice. But anyway, but super cool meeting Alan Pope and Martin Wimpris, Wimpy. That was quite a delight just to meet them. But anyway, yeah, good times. So is anybody here? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just think it would be so interesting. Like you're saying, these are people that we've read so much about or listened to or heard things of. And they're just like regular people who happen to be involved with these things that we find very interesting, but I'm sure the rest of the world, has no idea who they are, but we would go there and be so sort of amazed to meet them, and what an experience that would be, and a pleasure and an honor and all this stuff. And from what I've heard from you and from I think anyone who's ever been to one of these conferences is that they're very accessible, so it's not like there's any sort of celebrity status where they're like being hidden away or something, and B, they're just very approachable. Like they're just there. They just are part of the fabric of what's happening, and there's no such thing as sort of, we're the people putting this on and you're the plebs that are sort of showing up to, it's not like a Star Trek convention or something where, the cast comes out and they're the stars and stuff like that. Even
Right.
though I would feel the same way meeting Popey and Wimpy and like all that.
Yeah.
Having listened to them for so long, I would have thought the same thing. Like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually meeting you guys. This is so cool. And like, I'm sure they think it's very silly, but
Uh,
you know,
Yeah, they did, and it was actually I wanted them to like throw some sort of like just for fun, like a British insult, at me, but they didn't.
like
You
I
know,
won't
just some,
say it, but yeah,
yeah, one of those that are very funny, but you can't. I wouldn't say here on Linux Saloon.
right, exactly.
But they're actually just such really good people that I don't think that they would anyway. It's. I mean, they might if with enough.
Well, if you're encouraging them,
Yeah,
possibly.
It was also real fun. So Alan Pope he's got a Steam Deck, and he was running Ubuntu on there just on a thumb drive, and actually he was just really marveling at how well it just worked without doing anything, and I thought it was pretty cool that he was doing that. No, it was just. I mean, it was booted in like on a USB stick, so it wasn't like it was not permanent. But anyway, nonetheless, it was still very cool to see the just the enthusiasm, just the various bits of enthusiasm. I think it was just a lot of fun.
The honest truth is, I have literally never sat in the same room with someone else having an experience with Linux or a computer or playing around. Like everything I've ever done with any of this has been just literally myself, which is, I mean, maybe sad saying it out loud like that, but like I've never had any sort of a exchange across the table with someone in person to talk about like, well, what do you like or what do you do or what, and I think although I value this and the fact that I've been able to participate in this and other things like it, it has to be a completely different experience doing it in person.
It is certainly. So I mean, last year's the first time I got to meet anybody. Like we're going to Southeast Linux Fest in is it South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, wherever it was. I wrote it down. That's all that matters. So it was great to meet like Noah in person and a lot of other people. Being able to meet why does his name escape me right now? No, I didn't meet Ryan, but Drager OS. What's his name? Thomas. Jeez, sorry, Thomas. Man, terrible me. Had a brain hiccup there, but so it was really neat meeting him and lots of other people too that you just see online or whatever. But so those things are it's really a lot of fun. But I have a local friend who I was in the military with. He's also retired, and he's a pretty big Linux guy as well. And so it's fun to, we don't like. He's very busy, and I'm busy, so we don't get to hang out that much. We talk quite a bit. We actually probably talk as much on Telegram as I do to any of you, actually. So, but
that's good.
I actually have a Chromebook here that I put Crouton on for him, but he hasn't come back to pick it up. But anyway, so there's outside of him, there's not really anybody that I have either locally that I can talk to. So being surrounded by a bunch of nerds is actually it's really exciting. Like really, or I shouldn't say nerds. That's a pejorative term. It's so technology enthusiasts. So another little fun note: Glorious Egg Roll. He had a Lenovo Go. I don't know if you know what that looks like. It's like a Steam Deck, only bigger and less battery life, but a lot more power. Looks really cool, and he was experimenting with having like some version. I don't know which one it was of Steam OS on there. So like one of the like a respin of it of somebody out there. There's one of them out there that exists. I can't remember the name of it, but that was pretty cool. And then he actually did it. He didn't do it, but the Proton developer. I think they called him Alex, like just because his name was difficult for everybody. He actually did his presentation using the Steam Deck, like in the regular, like the whatever the normal mode. It's like big screen mode, whatever it's called. And so that was pretty funny. They actually went into it like it was a game and started the presentation out. It was pretty funny. But anyway, really neat to see. And these are all just like regular people.
If you can demonstrate that you can perform a presentation, then it's probably a tax write-off.
You know what? You're probably right. Oh, also
That's what
Lutris.
challenged him. Yeah.
Yeah. Also the guy, the Lutris developer, he was there as well. I almost forgot about that. But yeah, super neat to see these people who we care so much about, like their work.
And again, to stress the point that so much of open source is made up of a guy.
Yeah.
Like this project is because some guy or some person just decided they had an itch to scratch, and it's like, how can one person do so much? It's just amazing. And of course, the more popular projects end up getting more help, but the idea that one person's sort of initiative and drive or passion or whatever you want to call it can lead to so much change.
Yeah,
amazing.
For sure. And that is also, it's neat to see like someone who just like had an itch to scratch, a passion, and they pursued it. It started as a little thing and then just grew into something really incredible that's valuable to if not hundreds of thousands, maybe perhaps millions of people out there. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It all feeds back. I mean, if there's enough demand for it, that's how things get into the kernel. It's how hardware support. That's why it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lots of great discussion there. That a lot of it went over my head. And what can you do, right? So I will have I'm doing, it's almost done. By almost done, I mean it's probably about halfway there, of just kind of a recap of my trip to Riga, Latvia. I'll be publishing that on cubicleinate.com about my time at Ubuntu Summit as an OpenSUSE user. So that will be forthcoming. I wanted it done yesterday, but didn't work out. Well, all right. That's my crutch word. I say, well, all right, when I'm moving on. Eris, you did a straw poll on inspired by Sean about the if forced to pay for distribution of choice, the time interval in which would be ideal.
It was a continuation of the previous poll, pretty much.
You're a little on the quiet side. I don't know if you want to crank it up at all.
Let me adjust that in the settings.
Maybe it's Zoom being Zoom.
How's that?
Oh, beautiful now. I can hear you just fine. I don't have to turn up my earbuds or my...
Okay. Yeah, it's a continuation of the previous poll. The previous one was how much, and this is like the time interval. So let me refresh one last time the results. And the question was, if forced to pay for your distribution of choice, which time interval of payment would be ideal? And number one is once a year with 42%. And then it comes once a month with 20%. Unwilling to pay any amount with 11%. Then other with 8%. Then every 3 months, 6%. Every 6 months, 3%. Every 2 years, 3%. A longer period than previous options, 3%. Can afford to pay any amount, 3%. Tux Penguin, 3%. No votes for once a week, every other week, every 2 months, every 4 months. And I did get some replies to the poll. The first reply is other. I currently donate every upgrade. Paying a subscription fee for an OS is not something I am comfortable with. I feel the same way about most products as service schemes. And then I got another reply says, I'd be okay with anything from monthly to biannually, but now you're competing with the big guns, so you have to deliver. And the final reply was, straw poll has a major issue. Forced to pay, I'd be willing to donate, even asked to donate. When forced, I'm out of here. So just to respond to the specific reply, every poll has a different scheme, like what it's trying to get out. if I just to say how much would you pay, there's not really a question because then the question would be how much do you really pay? How much have you paid?
Hmm.
So if you don't say forced to pay, then it's status quo, and status quo is is forced to pay any amounts except for some very particular distros that you do have to pay in order to use them.
Well, I think forced can mean other things too, like forced. No, like so. I think he probably interpreted it as like forced as in like pressured to, but it could also mean in order to keep this project alive. You could look at it that way too. If it meant to keep the project alive, how much would you be willing to pay? Something like that. That's how I interpret it, but that's that's me.
Yeah, I think is my mic working?
I think your mic's working great.
Okay, it wasn't before because I said something and no one reacted.
Oh well,
It was
actually,
bizarre.
I was just ignoring you, and we all were. I sent a private message to everybody here on Zoom that says, next time Colin talks, just ignore him. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that.
No, I was actually saying I could throw you some Aussie insults. It's pretty
Ooh.
much the same as English insults. That's what I was saying. But anyway, getting back to the straw poll, I would have liked to have seen like a once-off payment there. So that would have been a good one to have in there. So once-off payment. So you pay for your distro and it's yours, right?
Like a box copy.
And
I spent $60 to get a box
Yeah,
copy of
yeah,
Android
pretty
back in the
much.
day or
Yeah,
whatever.
I think so. I think that's a good idea. I mean, you can buy. Well, you used to be able to buy Windows. I don't know if you can anymore because I think you still can. I'm not sure, but they're gone subscription based, right?
I think you can buy
I'm
Windows.
pretty sure.
Yeah,
I
you
think
can still buy it.
you can still buy it, can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to upgrade my Windows 11 because I have to, if I want to enable remote access with RDP with Windows, I have to
Right.
like upgrade from Windows Home to Windows Pro. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, okay, so I have to buy even the upgrades. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you can't also you can't put Windows Home on a domain either. That's another fun thing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's fun.
Super fun.
I wrote down, or I wrote down, I clicked on, we don't write things anymore. I think I did it every month was my answer, but I think it depends on how much and how often it's updated. There's a lot of software that I already sort of do on a sort of monthly basis, if that makes sense. Like there's some apps from the App Store that I get. I do monthly subscriptions to, but they're updated frequently. And I think I wouldn't mind, similarly to how sort of Chrome OS does it, where they get like bi-weekly pretty big updates. If every month there was a pretty decent amount of updates being done in terms of improving the feature sets, the quality of things, and it was a constant thing, I wouldn't mind paying monthly for an OS. Probably not like a lot of money on that regular basis, but it definitely is something that I could see being worth my while.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm so dependent on so many Linuxy things that like, I mean, I do buy a subscription to OpenSUSE or whatever it is, the annually I pay for a
SUSE workstation license, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. License. There we go. So there's that, but it's like $50. And it just says that I'm using a workstation. It doesn't contribute to Plasma, but I probably should make a little note in there next time I pay for it. Just say, hey, by the way, if you want to throw a little work toward Plasma, that'd be cool. But I also donate to the KDE Foundation or I think it's Foundation. So they had a drive a while ago, and I kicked in to make sure my name was in something. I don't know what it was. I can't remember now. But anyway, just because I thought, I use it so much and I'm so dependent on it. And I truly have tried to use Windows like to be productive, but it just doesn't get along with me. Like if I move from window to window, like if I'm doing like stuff with Excel spreadsheets and I click on the email to look at the next set number that I got to pull out of that and to fill out just for recording some stuff for the backups and whatnot. I have to like click 3 times in order to get into the cell for which I want to actually do any work. And I don't know what it is that requires so many darn clicks, but I'm gonna wear out my mouse very fast using Windows. And yeah, there's like a lot of really usability things that are just really aggravating.
Save the mice.
Windows is one of those things that I've said that is, if I had never experienced Linux and didn't know any better, then I would probably be perfectly happy or try to fix the things that really drove me crazy, but I wouldn't have this alternative. That's what makes it kind of impossible for me to use. I've been using it a little bit, Windows 11, and I think they've done some nice things in terms of usability, at least surface level. But ultimately, yeah, it's still confounding, why a certain option is called a certain thing, or if I want to get to a different type of option, I have to actually go into the old options menus, which is just strange. You pick a power plan and like that, there's a certain set of power stuff in the Windows 11 control panel.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you want to choose what the lid does, you have to go into the old stuff. And so there's still this legacy sort of cruft, which, I get that. But also this is a, multi-billion-dollar company. And if they can't modernize things, like it either just means that it's good enough and people just don't care, because
I wonder if it's because
I don't know.
Normal users, not saying you're abnormal, but normal users
I get
don't
it.
actually care about that sort of granular control.
Yeah, and maybe even just don't ever even check. Like they just don't know, like maybe if they have to change that setting one time, they change it and they never think about it again.
And the users that would use that kind of granular control are technology enthusiasts anyway, and they're just going to be just, fine with it. It's the same as like going to a terminal.
An IT professional that has to deal with it, like that's in some twisted way almost like job security, where the harder it is to use, the more likely it is you need me to help you, which gives me job security in some, again,
came to a
weird way.
conclusion sort of recently. So I work with Windows, Mac, and Chrome OS stuff in retail, and sometimes on the support side of things, sometimes more just selling it. And the one thing that I've noticed is that one of the big differences between how I would describe like different levels of Windows users is that, like, especially compared to Linux users, when you're like a pro user and you use Windows, you're a pro user of the software you're using, right? The apps or whatever it is. But when you're like a pro user and you use Linux, you're like a pro user of the OS. It's like a totally different category of like what you're doing. And it's super interesting to see how even crazy technical Windows users who are doing some wacky stuff with these apps, I look at their actual system and it's just jank. Like it's all totally a mess, and it's just because it's not even worth bothering with. It's just
That's really interesting.
It's
Well,
wild.
I remember, I mean, it was a standard thing, and I don't mean to turn this into like a weird Windows complaint session, but like after maybe 2 years, 18 months, 2 years, like it would just get to a point where there must be enough things that I installed and uninstalled, or issues with the registry, or I don't know what it was, but it would just get to the point where it was so slow or so buggy or and there was just no way to really fix it other than to just reinstall it. And so that's what I would do. And to be fair, I don't think I have many Linux installations that last that long for me to get to that point. Maybe I would have some of the same issues, but yeah, like it as a long-term thing, I never felt like it lasted very long. I was always hesitant. Like, I don't really want to install a bunch of stuff on this because it feels like as soon as I do, it gets real shaky, like if I needed it to be for video editing, like I just want to have the video editor and maybe a couple things, and like I don't want to put anything else on here.
Well,
So,
since we're complaining, I don't like the ribbon. The ribbon drives me crazy. I was doing something with Excel the other day, and I could not find something. And I was clicking on all these ribbons, and eventually I found it. It was driving me nuts.
That's so funny because I love the ribbon, and I was like begging LibreOffice to convert to ribbon in like
Right.
2011. That's funny.
I guess that's, so I was watching Infinitely Galactic, right? That's his,
Yep.
the
Yep.
Yeah.
YouTuber.
IG.
And he was just talking about why Mint is so good, at least for his reasons. And he said, the complaint that it gets so often and so many Linux distributions get in desktop environments is, why does it look so much like Windows? And the idea is, well, because you get used to something. And it's like, well, why is there a steering wheel and a brake pedal and a gear shifter? And like, it could be any model of car, but they all follow the same paradigm because that's the way we interact with it. And so a computer really only has so many different paradigms that you can employ, unless it's specialized hardware or specialized, you're doing something that's not just normal computing. And it's actually interesting to see how sticky that is and how we have it. I mean, maybe touch devices are the most recent iteration of, human interface. And like, certainly people my daughter's age are much more comfortable with a phone and a touch screen than they are with a computer. It's like pulling teeth for her to sit down in front of her computer. I have a really nice laptop for her and she never wants to use it. And so it is surprising that we haven't sort of broken out of that. And maybe, GNOME is like the attempt at that. Budgie, there's been some different sort of, spins on it, but for the most part, you sort of, and I think to that, like desktop layout switcher in Manjaro GNOME, if you've ever seen that, where it's like Redmond, which is a Windows layout, and I think Mate had it too, very similar thing, and then there's the Cupertino, which is a Mac sort of layout, and there's only so many of those, but anyway, I think that you just sort of get used to that, and like, Prophetic's used to the ribbon, and that's what he likes to have because it's visual. The ribbon's very visual, it's very spatial. It's like there. I need to click over there, and yeah. So it's not surprising that you liked it and then Colin didn't, and there's these different. And actually, I noticed that LibreOffice gives you the ability to reconfigure.
Yep.
The menu now.
Yeah, you can have ribbon or
cool.
the traditional.
It's an atrocious ribbon, but yes, it's a ribbon.
So I think it's fine, but the here's what I will say: I like the traditional layout for Excel, or I should say spreadsheets and Word and word processing documents. I like the ribbon better for presentations.
That makes sense, yeah.
But so that's just me, and so if you were to look at my LibreOffice, you would see it like that. So I'm kind of like on the fence, I'm not quite in the Colin camp, and not quite in the prophetic camp. I'm kind of
on the edge of the ribbon.
Edge, yeah. And then I have a it's called PDF Studio. It's an application I pay for that is for editing PDFs, and I use it a lot. Just over the years, I've used it a lot. And I think I bought it several times now. But I first bought it in 2007 because it was the only option. And they've gone to the ribbon format and have a really nice dark theme too that goes along with it. And actually, I like the ribbon on that. So I don't know. Maybe I think it's for me, it's application dependent.
I remember the days when it was like when I was on Unity, and I was like, okay, I can get over this lack of ribbon because I have HUD.
Oh yeah.
And I would just use HUD, type,
that was nice.
Launch. It was beautiful. So
it was.
R.I.P. HUD.
In the ribbon's defense, I did move. I did move computers from one workstation to another, so that other computer has an updated version of Excel. So my other one, I did a lot of work on was did not have the ribbon. So it's probably just due to the fact that I haven't done that particular process before. I couldn't find it, right? But it just goes to show with a big change like that, you can be very lost, right? If you're used to something else.
When they introduced it in Office, I don't remember specifically which version it was, but I remember that being like everyone I was the sysadmin at that point, so it was the early 2000s, and like everyone lost their minds. They were like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to find anything. How do I turn this off? Like it was such a disruption
Yeah.
to introduce the ribbon concept.
Yeah, that was 2000. I think it was Office 2007 that had it, right? That's when they
Something like
introduced
that,
it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I use that for a long time. In fact, if I still need Microsoft Office, that's actually what I'll use.
It's
And Linux.
2013, isn't it? Not 7, isn't it?
So-
2013. I thought it was.
Oh, now it's
The ribbon was
2023.
Was it that late? I thought it was earlier than that.
I think it was 2007. Because I remember that 2007 is when
I'm sure the 2007 was the old one I was using on the other computer. I may be wrong, but and I think the other one that I got lost on was 2013. I could be wrong about that as well because I don't really take much notice of that stuff when I'm at work. But and I don't use Excel as much as I used to. But I thought it was 2013, the ribbon.
2013 introduced a new kind of like when you went to file, it like blocked everything out and gave you a whole garbage menu
Full
of things.
screen. Yeah.
It was terrible.
Right.
Because it was more.
Was that when they kind of made it like Windows 8, like it all tied into this like same big chunky UI?
Yeah, and they never actually got away from that part of it.
That
That's still-
metro sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
The other thing I find a problem is when you want to have one Excel sheet open, another Excel sheet open. Does anyone get like Windows tends to put like an Excel sheet, it minimizes it in the background, but you want them both up. And I think you've got to actually go to File and Open to get them as two separates.
So
Right, it wants to reuse the window. Yeah.
yeah. So
That's
Yeah.
so if the newer versions of Office do not do that, but the like 2007.
Oh, they don't?
onward-
Okay.
Yeah, because 2007 did that, and then 2013 I think also did that. And I
Right.
don't know about in
it was.
between.
You had to like
Yeah.
hold shift and double click to open. There was some trick
Yeah.
you did to get it to open
Right.
as a separate window.
had to stand
And
on
I
your
remember
left
needing
foot.
to do that. Pat your belly. Yeah. But anyway, to go back to the original point, I think for someone like, for a project like Elementary, to ask, for it's essentially a donation because you can put 0, right? If it was a fixed
Yeah.
sum, they would enforce it, and they don't. And many other projects just ask for piecemeal, and they don't do it as well as I think maybe they could or should. And Linux Mint is actually a good example of ones that they don't necessarily push for donations, but they get a lot of donations.
They do,
They have
yeah.
corporate sponsors, they've got people, and I like how they say, 6th donation or 10th donation. They kind of give people credit for ongoing donations, and I think that's great. And I think that if certainly, and I've always been a big proponent of this, if you make any money, if you're using any software, open source software, in a business sense, and you are providing a service for a customer, or setting up stuff for whatever it is that you're dealing, if you're making money directly from that, I think it's only fair to give even a modest percentage of that back, because it's sort of a virtuous circle to kind of incentivize and to show the developers that you appreciate what they're doing. And it also just feels like the right thing to do. Like they've given you this ability to deliver a service that is valuable enough for someone to pay you, and you should be able then to contribute back. It's in your own best interest to do so. So whether that's a desktop environment for your whole computer, if you want to look at it in those terms, all the work I do is on Linux, so I certainly would fall into that category. And or individual software projects. But it is different because Windows is kind of just comes with the machine, right? And they don't expect you to pay for it. Mac, same way. So the idea of someone paying, especially just an end user paying for an operating system, Now they're used to paying for software, but that's a slightly different thing.
I think just touching on the elementary thing, I think when you actually go to the elementary website, I think they should have it as something that's after you install, not before, because I think that could put a lot of people off. Because it's deceiving that you got to put something in there, whereas you don't really need to put something in there, which they could lose users. But people really probably want to try it before they actually donate to it, because it might not be something they want to use.
Biggest reason for that is because it's not necessarily so think about it this way, right? Like when you go to buy Windows, you don't get the USB stick and then go back to the store and pay for it. Because nobody's going to do that. But the other thing as well is that because they don't require it fully, I think I don't think it's quite as egregious necessarily. Like they do say that you could do any amount. If it was required, then I guess I could see that. Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to trial it and return it, do something like that for sure.
I think the thing with Windows though is everybody knows what they're getting though, isn't it? With Windows.
That is true.
Right. Whereas with Linux, you've got so many different distros. People want to find what their niche is and what they can use, and whether it's good for them or not, whether it suits their workflow and all those sorts of things. I get where they're coming from, and I'm not criticizing it. I just think I'm just looking at a point of view where they may lose users for the fact that they might not want to put something in and they don't understand that they can put 0. Right.
And it has happened. For sure. I can say with certainty it has.
Yeah.
Because with Linux, there's pretty much an established culture of being able to simply download a distribution. And that's different. Like with Windows, okay, you expect to pay for it, or you expect it to just be on your computer and you just buy the computer. And so it's a difference in thought. It's a difference in your mentality. I've personally tried, was thinking about Elementary just to check it out. And I just knew I could put 0 in it. So it wasn't a big deal. But to somebody who doesn't know that, it's a little bit different depending on their mindset.
Nitrix was doing something for a while, and I think they went back on it, but I'm pretty sure they had been charging like to even just get the installer. And it was exactly that situation where it was like, well, I don't even know if it works. Like, I'm not going to pay for this, and it was just sort of like, and I wasn't because I didn't value it. It was because it was unknown to me. And I think in a situation like Elementary, if I enjoyed it enough to use it on a routine basis, I would go back and then pay for it. Retrospectively, right? But
sure.
To have to pay for it up front and not know at all. And I'm sure if I went to the Nitrix guys and said, look, I bought it, it doesn't work, either they would try to help me or, whatever. But the case that it was just, that was my introduction to it, was like, oh, I've heard about this thing, I want to try it. I go here and I'm like, how do I download it? Oh, I have to buy it. It was just like, wow, okay. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, my start into Linux was buying box copies because you couldn't effectively download
box
them.
software, come on. That
was my favorite.
Box games, I mean, it was like getting an album, right? You got a little booklet. You got this jewel case with artwork on it. I mean, I have a bunch of my old games that probably don't even run anymore. I mean, maybe they would. I don't know. But
I don't know how often you guys go into like the electronic sections of like Targets and Walmarts and Best Buys and stuff, but box software has kind of changed a little bit, because there's certain software where it actually is still a box, but there's literally nothing in it at all. Like they make little nice packaged boxes. They're empty. They're completely hollow. You scan it at checkout and they just send you a code. I'm like, why is it still a box? There's nothing in here.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And then you
Super
go
weird.
home and download 100 gigabytes to get the game run.
It's so weird.
I'm convinced that when you buy, this is now totally derailing here, but I'm convinced that when you buy like a PlayStation game, like 4 is the last, this is one I have, and I don't know if that's considered old now, but I'm convinced that the game on there is nothing more than a link to where you're downloading it. So you're paying for a piece of plastic that's just a link, because it's like, I can't play this until tomorrow at this rate. Okay, great. That was lots
Yeah.
of fun. I should have planned ahead when buying this. It's like,
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny
Especially
you
if you
mentioned
have.
that too, because I had GTA 5, I think it was,
Yeah.
and it was 2 discs for the game. And even after installing both discs, I still couldn't play it. I still had to download the rest of it from the internet.
Yeah, that was an asynchronous thing. Like when they realized they could. I mean, you think back in the day, and sure there were bugs in certain things, but like the idea that they had to completely, finish a piece of software and it had to get through all the way through QA testing and all that stuff before they even sold it. And what you got was a copy of Office or a copy of whatever. And sure, there might be an update that you can run, but it really wasn't a necessary thing. Like it would generally just run. Whereas, and once they realized they could publish a game or any software for that matter, and you got the disc, which was sort of like proof that you owned it, but then, oh, well, there's another 100 gigs of stuff you have to download,
Oh yeah.
If you don't have a great internet connection, that's a pretty poor experience, but they've conditioned us to expect it now. Just like the free part of this where, I was really kind of disappointed that people were like, I'll never pay for it. And it's like, really? You would never pay for it? Like, even if you knew the software developer that was building this project that you love was like, losing their house or something. And like, whatever the case is, like, and they desperately wanted to continue, but they just financially could not do it unless people were to contribute and then, put that information out there. And then the community responded. Like, even in that situation, you would just say, meh, I'll just use something else. Like, and I think that's just an affectation of the fact that most people, and especially younger people, have been conditioned by everything being free. They don't really pay for music anymore. They don't pay for movies anymore. They don't pay for, any kind of content or software or really anything. And so when they're asked to pay even a modest amount, like I have to laugh, Android apps, $3-4 and you unlock and you don't have ads anymore. And it's like, I'm not paying $3. What?
Yeah.
You'll go to Starbucks and pay 10 for a stupid cup of coffee, but you
I
won't
feel
pay
called out right
3.
now.
Like people don't equate that in their minds. They don't think like this is such a small, tiny sum of money. So yeah, there are so many threads to this that I'm not going to sit here and go on and on, but
I do
gotten
appreciate
so
you bringing that up. Oops, go ahead.
We've gotten so used to instant gratification. Like there's once upon a time, if you wanted to see a music video, you had to wait for it to show up on a certain channel,
On MTV, yeah.
or you had to buy something, or you had to do that. But now, I can pull it up on YouTube anytime I want. No matter when it is, 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't have to wait for nothing. It's at my fingertips.
My kids will never appreciate the joy of Saturday morning cartoons as much as me. I would never wake up early for school during the week, but certainly I could get up at 5:30 in the morning to make sure I hit Captain Planet, on CBS or whatever it was. So there's just, anyway, my kids will never understand just how magical Saturday morning cartoons are. It's like Saturday morning comes and nobody's up early. They're like, oh, this is the day we're going to sleep in. I'm like, what is the matter with you kids? What am I doing wrong here?
outside of major sporting events, things that happen live that have to be viewed live if you want to see them.
Oh, like the Linux
format.
Saloon, yeah.
Well, there's really, the world has become completely asynchronous. The idea that there was this hit TV show that everybody watched,
Star Trek:
and
The
if
Next
you didn't
Generation.
watch it, you didn't want to hear about it from anyone else. So you watched that TV show on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. or Saturday morning cartoons, or, you know, the things were so, there was a cultural impact that just, I don't think exists anymore. They put something out on Netflix or whatever, and it's like, I'll binge it, you know, like.
So you mentioned just a bit of two, and I feel weird because I feel like this is a role reversal from what I used to really think about and not really care about. But you did mention too about things sort of not being paid for, and there's this constant expectation that things are free. And it's interesting because the framework presented by every company that controls how this entire market works, everybody from Adobe to Microsoft, Amazon, all of that, the framework in place is essentially that payment is almost like a subconscious element, right? You're not necessarily paying money, but every ad you watch, every bit of data you give over, like, right? So they've turned essentially, they've turned product into a
Service.
almost like a weird way to, yeah, exactly. And it's like it's technically free, but like, is it really free? And it's so weird because when you explain that to people, it's just kind of like it's free. I'm not paying anything, but like it does have value, and it's weird. It's a strange way that we've sort of been conditioned to reuse that word to sort of just receive things that we use.
It's
I've started to see younger people have a little bit of a backlash against that, like where there's become a bit of a recognition that the idea of free doesn't really exist. These are for-profit corporations making billions of dollars. Obviously, it's not free, right? Like somewhere there's value. And I think I'm starting to see that more and more as I interact with younger people, like that they kind of understand, well, I don't know if I want to use that service because it means then that I'm giving up a certain amount of my anonymity or whatever. And that's a hopeful sign for me, that
For
there is
sure.
sort of this now awareness of that, at least. Sorry, Nate.
I was gonna say we do still pay for these things. It's paid for in a different way. So like Shikla was saying, like we either in advertising or somehow they're getting a cut some other way. I mean, actually, I recently took a play out of your book, Eric, and actually I am now signed up for YouTube Premium because
Heck yeah.
well, the thing is, it's like most of my entertainment is watching these creators on YouTube now. Like it really is. Like every once in a while I'll like I think I'm gonna cancel probably Netflix at this point because I'm not really using it. Disney Plus was canceled. Not really using that one either. I'm still hanging on to Paramount because of Star Trek. But anyway, so it's like I find that like my entertainment comes more from these YouTube creators because it's just honest, compelling, like storytelling from, the genuine storytelling. And I had been, shamefully using ad blocker just because I couldn't stand just the ad. Like, actually, I like advertising. I know this might be, this is a hot take for me, but I actually like, I like being fed just, like this is something new. So I wish there was kind of maybe an in-between, like YouTube Premium and, pleb YouTube or whatever. But anyway, and I think that, so I'm paying for my entertainment, but like it's just a little different how I'm paying for it now than before. Like, I don't know. It's all different.
I recognize the same thing, that I watched so much YouTube, and I, unlike you, disdain advertising for the most part. I mean, I do appreciate the idea that it introduces me to something I'm not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, advertising has a purpose when it's done properly. The problem is usually it's so repetitive online that they just beat the same thing in. Like, here's the same commercial literally 3 times back to back. Like,
absolutely,
that kind of stuff kills me. But so it's worth it to me to pay for an upper tier like a Hulu. You have a basic where you have ads, and then you have the upper ad-free version. Although now that they are going to be owned by Disney, I'm going to bail on Hulu probably. So, YouTube's becoming sort of the last bastion. And honestly, I thought I'd get rid of Netflix, but I feel like Netflix is at least independent. They're not owned by Disney or Paramount or some major studio. Like, they're still independent, and I respect that. And I think that's worth supporting, actually, for better or worse.
This is kind of, I've been thinking about this in terms of paying for software. And admission, I'm on a Chromebook right now, but a lot of software, yeah, it's still Linux. A lot of software is obviously moving subscription based in a lot of ways. A lot of other software is subsidized by things like ads, stuff like that. But I was kind of curious with a lot of how things are done being more and more focused on being solely reliant on web technologies. I mean, if you look at games, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, you can't even get most games now without also having the internet, even if you have a disc, right? I'm curious if there's maybe a sort of like consensus here, or maybe feedback on like paying for software that's sort of web wide, right? Like if everything you end up using is just a website, are we subscribing to these different apps via website or these different services, or like are we reaching the point now where we're going to have like a subscription for 10 different websites in one? Like it's just, I don't know where everything's going right now.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the next evolution, right? We broke up cable, kind of, into disparate, subject matters or studios or whatever. We've sort of built up this bastardized system of everybody owns the piece they own and they try to hawk it for the greatest price they can and still somehow can't make money. How is it all these services are failing? I have absolutely no idea, other than they're just either overspending on their technology or they're just that inept.
It's the loans.
I guess. But secondarily, now we have this situation where we're sort of all of this content's held hostage, and a company like Disney just keeps buying everything. And it's like they just put it behind a paywall. This is the dream come true for them. They have direct control of distribution. And they've always said that sort of on DVD and other stuff like that. But now this is kind of like they don't even have to work with anyone else. They're just like, we own it all. And so I can see the next evolution being some sort of like a proxy service where they sign up for all this crap for you, and you just go in and you can see what the piece you want to see. And you stay subscribed to that piece for as long as you want to watch that series, and then it unsubscribes you so they don't have to keep paying for it. And it's all happening in the background, and it becomes another cable service essentially, right? So it's
Yep.
There's no clean way. And then I just listened to this thing on the Pirate Bay, where basically it was Darknet Diaries. I don't know if you've heard of that podcast. It's a pretty good podcast, but they were talking about how the Pirate Bay is still up and operational even all these years later after lawsuits and jail time, and it's like it will never die. And the reason is because of exactly these types of things. If you give me content that I can get to and pay a reasonable sum for, I will pay that money gladly, because it's going to be better quality, easier to access, all of those things. But they don't. They make it as difficult as possible. Their apps are absolutely terrible if they even work properly. It's a terrible service that's delivered in an awful way. You couldn't possibly get a hold of a customer support person even if you wanted to. Like, these services have such a low expectation. Like people of course are going to subvert them. Of course they're going to go around them because it's such a bad experience. And I don't know how to solve that. I mean, I would have to think they have some very smart people running these systems, yet somehow they still can't make it work. And I just don't understand that.
It's funny how you talk about them doing the ads, because I remember getting started with Linux, watching the Linux Action Show, for example, and they would always talk about Ting.com or they talk about GoDaddy.com. But it's okay, so they did that advertisement to the part where I could probably say it word for word at this point, but it was entertaining. And it would kind of segue into it, and it made sense with what the program was talking about versus being something completely unrelated at all to what it is you're trying to learn or trying to go through at that time. Over time, it's like an ad. Okay, you watched an ad. Okay, I watched an ad. I should be done. No, there's an ad 10 minutes later. And then there's an ad again, and then again and again. It has nothing to do with anything you're interested in. And it's just annoying. Or it's an ad that's louder than the volume of what you were listening to before. And it's like, you guys are just being ridiculous. So, of course, you're going to have people like, man, I'm tired of this. Y'all need to cut through this. We need some sponsor block. We need some this, ad, blah, blah, blah. They just got obnoxious with it. It's just like those saying the web pages at one time where all of a sudden it would be this, it would show you a screen, it would be blam in your face. You got to click, or they put the X in a different area, so you got to like hunt for it. You got to go through all this crap to get to what you want to read.
Yep.
Like people get
Yep.
sick of that mess. You're just obnoxious and annoying, and
That's it.
I don't know how effective it is anyway.
And this is why the ad blocker boycott has been so. Why ad blocking itself becomes so successful is because people are just tired of low quality advertisements.
Yeah.
Because no company has any sort of quality control. Like, for example, on YouTube, you'll see ads for get rich quick schemes, crypto NFT projects, mobile games, and loads of them. So people are just tired. Like, I think if platforms like YouTube implemented actual quality control on what ads could be viewed, people would actually watch.
You'd have to pay human beings to do that, though, and they're not willing to do that.
No, nobody would do that because it's easier for Google to make a buck from allowing anybody with Google account to place an ad through AdSense.
Mm-hmm.
On Google, be it Google, YouTube, or really any other website, right? Like it's the same thing with the fake OBS results on Google. Have you heard of those?
No.
Any Google search ads or whatever. I don't use Google, so I don't see those. But apparently there were like fake results for OBS and MSI Afterburner that would replace the top search results and would lead to fake copies of the program containing malware. But regardless, the quality control is an important thing that companies don't want to implement, but would actually make people want to watch the ads, or at least not want to block them at the very least.
Yeah. How many of you seen the Temu ad about the
Temu?
If you do any kind of like mobile ads, you'll see these Temu ads, and they are infuriatingly stupid on purpose.
They're so
dumb. And you see
I've
them
noticed now
over and over.
I've noticed now on YouTube, if you actually go back to watch one part of the video that you wanted to watch again, it comes up with an instant ad, right?
Anything more than 30 seconds will.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
In defense of the massive amounts of ads and their variability, there are billions of videos, thousands and thousands and thousands of different searches happening every single second for different things, and different advertising companies trying to put their stuff in there. And just as with everything, there is always a company trying, or a person trying to take advantage of a system, and there are always people trying to fix it, and it's a constant battle. So I don't necessarily think it's all Google or YouTube. When you see a bad ad, it's bad actors trying to put that in place. And every single day, YouTube and Google do make changes to their system to try and combat these things. It's not like they just ignore it. You cannot have a person watch every single piece of content, because it's literally more hours than every person on the planet could possibly ever spend collectively.
Right, and that's what I'm not saying that relying on technology to do the heavy lifting is necessarily a bad thing, but if people are clicking on report this ad because it's garbage, there should be sort of a trap immediately, and someone should be looking.
Got to do more.
And I don't think it's as sensitive as it could be. Obviously,
I know why, by the way.
Because people
there were auto clickers that used to just do that to get rid of ads.
Sure.
I mean, at the same time, it's kind of like a hydra, right? You report one ad, cut off the head, 2 more pop up. It's a never-ending stream.
It's so great.
So, well, I want to say just about advertising. Like, I actually used to be in advertising, and I actually enjoyed writing the copy for entertaining advertising. And I think if it's done right, advertising can be just as entertaining as whatever it is you're watching.
Oh, absolutely.
But the problem is, these advertising agencies are just lazy, and they're not good writers. They're terrible. And it won't get any better with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is pulling from terrible advertising. No. So,
no, I mean, I've heard like AI made ads, like, because it seemed like a Canadian Tire ad. Like, I'm pretty sure those have AI voices these days.
Like I'm like 100% certain it is an AI doing the voice for those ads now.
I'm sick of AI voices too because they're all terrible. I don't
AI
care.
voices.
So annoying.
They're just terrible. But I will say though, the
Oh, they're
advertising
bad.
that does actually get me to click on it because that I do succumb to this from time to time. So from Twitter or X, whatever it's called, they do really good targeting advertising for me, like just really neat gadgets that I want. And also Instagram is probably the worst offender.
Instagram.
I've
Oh
clicked
my
on
God.
so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
Yeah,
advertising like on
it
Instagram,
is.
like there was this really cool, like you put it underneath between your hood and your car, like these like LED light strips, and I thought how cool that would be to put on a car, and I clicked on the ad, of course, and then there's I've actually like I just like thought about like getting a forklift for different reasons. It's not important, and so there was like an ad for like used forklifts. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And so I'm still getting text messages and emails now for forklifts. Whoops.
I think
Yeah, that's
advertise.
the accident. Go, Colin.
I was going to say advertising can work well because, and a good example of that is your big ball games over in America. Some of those advertisements that they have in the ball games pop up on my feed because they're so popular.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're like hot dog ads or sauce ads or something like that.
Colin, I don't know if you know this, but our NFL, our Super Bowl every year has like a big thing is the halftime show ads, but there's now a
Yes.
show after the Super Bowl dedicated to the ads that were in the Super Bowl.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right, because they're
Yeah.
usually so legendary, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, they are.
point.
It's quite good.
Everybody's building
But
up,
that's
and it's
cream
all
of the
building
crop.
up to those ads.
Yeah, that's cream of the crop advertising, like top
Right.
tier.
They're
$30
also,
million dollars
I mean,
and
those
that,
ad slots are also like, millions. They're really expensive ad slots because
Yeah.
you got so many Americans watching.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So I don't disagree with Nate that good creative advertising, which
Mm-hmm.
history is full of that. And I think, I mean, I'm nostalgic to the point where I'll watch, ads from the 70s and 80s and even the 90s where it's just like things had jingles. Things
wanna
had
be your
Yeah.
Toys R Us
entertainment
kid.
value. There was a hook that kind of got its way into your brain, and you start whistling the jingle and you're like, why am I whistling that? Oh, that's right. That stupid commercial. Like,
Yeah, you ever found yourself
800
singing? Yeah, singing the phone number.
right.
I had that experience actually a couple of days ago where I was watching an old show used to come on, and then it was showing commercials from like I think this was like in '93, and it was showing commercials from that time period. And I was like, wow, I
Mhm.
still remember this commercial all these years later. Like,
Yep.
oh, of course it makes me feel old as dirt because then I'm like, oh my God, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
What?
But that was an expectation that I would watch television and have that cadence. There was a pace, right?
Right.
There was a segment, they did that segment, and then you knew there'd be an ad break coming up that you could go get a snack or go to the
Yeah.
bathroom or something. And that sort of dictated, and it was so passive. Everything was passive. You turned on the switch and then you sat there. And maybe you switched channels or, until someone stole the remote and said, stop switching channels, you're driving me crazy or something like that. But, everything is so, with TikTok and I know this is such old man talk right now. I know, but it is, everything is
Back
just
in
like
my day.
10 seconds. Well, everything's 10 seconds, 15 seconds. I'm bored with this. Okay, boom, I need the next thing. 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay, I'm bored. I need the next thing. It's just constant, like, frenetic pace. And the idea of just like sit back and just enjoy something, like it just, that's one of the reasons I still enjoy YouTube, is because there's so many creators that are willing to make long form content, and you can watch a half hour, 45-minute, hour long video, and it doesn't feel like a half hour, 45 minutes or an hour long, because it's just good content. And you just, unfortunately, I don't feel like a lot of the stuff that's made on the streaming services is really targeted at me or, for me. I just, so yeah, YouTube is definitely king for me as well, and well worth the money I spend on it.
Yeah. So we're supposed to have an application potluck, but apparently we brought advertising woes with us today. So anyway, actually, that was a great conversation. I really enjoyed that. One, it's like anytime we like do a trip down nostalgia lane, probably because I'm getting old, that's always fun. So thanks, Swift.
Well, Nate,
for-
I actually
Yeah.
forgot to tell you that this was an advertisement for the advertising industry,
Oh, okay,
and you'll be
okay.
billed later.
All right. Well, good. I'll expect that bill. Another bill I won't pay.
You got money for Ubuntu Scullies. That's it.
Well, actually,
You got money for that, huh?
I didn't.
Where's my money?
I didn't pay for that. It was a gift from
Family
Ubuntu
Guy
folks.
reference.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
Actually, I didn't know.
Is there any open source software that includes advertising as a way to?
That's a good question.
So I think there's some rules against that, and I don't remember where it was that I read it, but like there's some, like, for you to package. I know that there's some rules like for packaging software for some, whatever, some repos that you can't have advertising in there. You can have a link to donate to your project, but you can't have advertising. I read that someplace, and I could be misremembering that. Maybe prophetic.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because then you're kind of corporatizing your product if you're making money from ads that other corporations are paying for. And at the same time, the proponents for open source wouldn't exactly have wanted that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't think that it would be popular. I wonder if anyone's tried it. I'm sure someone's tried it.
I bet you could probably do a
Well,
flat pack.
actually,
Well, I mean, this floats GitHub repository, so I'm sure someone's tried it.
so actually, Ubuntu has delivered ads before. So
Well, but that's
It's not
self-advertising, though, right?
no, before that,
The
there
Amazon.
was
Oh, that's right.
a time that they were
Amazon and stuff like
bundling
that.
Amazon
Yeah,
ads,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Forgot about that.
I forgot all about
So-
that. Yep.
Oh, people had were throwing a lot of shade toward Ubuntu for all that, and I actually my attitude was, they gotta. I'm glad they're trying different ways to monetize their product. So good on you.
Same here.
If it doesn't work, then stop doing it. So I mean, no, like people got really mad about the Amazon affiliate link too. I remember that one. That was probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
People like lost their cookies over that one.
It polluted the search results. I remember that. You would search for something and it would return an Amazon result instead of like a web result. And you were like,
Oh, really?
what is this? Yeah, it was really janky. I didn't like it at
Oh,
all.
I didn't know that part.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. So anyway, it's an application appetizer night, and I thought that I would bring in some. I'll kick this thing off here with an application I think that has been fun to play around with so far. I've only sort of touched on it, but actually, Eris, I'll wait. You have a pick, and I will do yours first, and then I'll do mine. One of mine.
So I started using Ubuntu Whaling Session 2310, and one of the things that I don't know how to do, and no, I don't think it's possible, is to remap your keyboard. And I discovered this application looking for them. For that, it's Input Remapper, and it's a GitHub. It's on GitHub. But I installed it through the Ubuntu repos. So you can use a GUI to remap your keyboard or any type of device to do other things. And I was able to remap my menu key back to super, like I like it in Xorg, and caps lock to escape. And
cool.
thanks to this, Wigglin gets to stay on my computer another day.
Waylon gets to? Is that what you said? Waylon gets to?
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
This is pretty cool.
I love that this supports Wayland. That is really, really neat.
But I don't know if I mentioned, but it's both Xorg and Wayland.
So how much have you played with this? So is it any input? So let's say you have two keyboards hooked into your computer. Could you have one keyboard have a different mapping than the other one?
I haven't played much with it, but it has worked. Once I set it up, I reboot everything. There's a little toggle there that says like make it permanent or something. I forgot what it says. auto something, and then it does it automatically. It creates a daemon and keeps it working.
It's Python. I see.
Combinations spanning multiple devices. You can. Oh. So you would essentially have a macro that basically tells it you want to use the other.
Yeah, so you say like I want to create a new key, and then you say what you want. You can rename the thing, and then you record where the button you're trying to switch or something, or like I guess in a keypad in a gamepad you need that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell it what do you want it to switch to, and then you can type that in on the side.
Oh my gosh! Wow, this might be the coolest application.
That's really cool.
That I can remember. That's fantastic. Well, this is a keeper right here. I want to play with this. I got one of those like a Bluetooth number pad, and some of the keys are like mapped to really goofy things, and I couldn't change it without affecting something else in Plasma.
Nice.
So this is very cool. Super cool. Thank you, Eris.
You're welcome. Thank you to the creator of this. I forgot his name.
Oops. They have a way to donate to this project? I don't know. I don't see anything. Oh, coffee. There we go. Sponsor this
It's
project.
always coffee.
Mm-hmm. Kofi or
You can
whatever it's
sponsor
called.
it in
Starbucks.
GitHub as well.
Jonas Bose.
Yep. Well, that's really awesome. I'm going to try this thing out this week because I have lots of different reasons to use this. So thank you very much. That's awesome. Sean, I see that hand. It's very digital, but I still see that hand.
Awesome. So I have a couple of small terminal utilities as an appetizer. Seemed appropriate. One is Dysk, DYSK, and that's like a DF replacement, but it shows it in a much more human readable form.
Spell that again.
DYSK, Dysk.
DYSK, Disk.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so it's a terminal based app that does what? That shows it's a DU but better.
Right. So it's a nicer way to look at your storage. For how much is free, what is mounted, where, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's very cool.
Another one is Moar, which is spelled MOAR, which is a replacement for the classic Moar command.
I like the silly words.
Yeah, and that is essentially it does automatic syntax highlighting.
Okay.
Depending on the type of file that you're pointing it to, which I find incredibly useful. And the last one comes in two flavors depending on what is available on your distro. The earlier version, I think, was EXA, and the later version is EZA.
Okay.
And they're a prettier LS function in the terminal. So it can give you icons for folders and icons for what's an application or what's checked into Git and all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, depending on what options you feed it. So I've kind of like remapped, some of that functionality from the original old school, I guess you would say, applications on the terminal over to the new ones that I'm using now, and I forget exactly what options I fed, like Exa to get all of the stuff I wanted out of it, but
that's really
just
cool.
a couple of neat little utilities as an appetizer.
Yeah,
To
those are
nosh on.
definitely delicious little
Disk-
appetizers.
I've just installed Dysk. That's very nice. I like that. So thanks for that. Yeah.
I don't want to risk installing anything right now.
What could possibly go wrong?
There are, I feel like sometimes my whole network is being held together by baling wire and duct tape. So
Coming to you live from the Grub recovery screen.
exactly. Those are very cool. Thank you very much, and thank you, Jinda, for all those links too. That's
Super cool.
You made my life a lot easier. Well, I have one for you. Has anybody here played with Rust Desk? So it is like a TeamViewer replacement that you can self-host. You can also use their service as well. Although they really push you to self-host, but you can. It's a paid for. It's much cheaper than TeamViewer and works a lot like it. I only just started playing with it, and so I'm like in the initial stages of it. But right now, I think it is super cool. You can just download an app image and bam, you're done. And as long as the application is running, it gives like a little like an address code and then a password basically to be able to access that machine. And it works super well, even the app image. And so I was very impressed by just how easy it is to utilize that. So basically things like TeamViewer, or is there anything besides TeamViewer out there? I don't know. But it
AnyDesk.
AnyDesk, that's right. That's one.
Yeah, sorry. We said it at the same time.
Perfect. I liked it. I heard it in stereo. It was like it was
Jinx.
all around me. And, but anyway, so Rust Desk is pretty great. I think I use other. There's another like Splash Top that I think I use at work. Another RMM. And but anyway, so Rust Desk, it's multi-platform, so you can use Windows, Mac, Linux. I'm sorry.
Can I ask you one or
Yes,
two
sir.
questions about that real quick?
Sure.
Did you said you hosted it? You're using it self-hosted via app image, or
No,
you're?
no. I'm just using it right now. I haven't gone self-hosting. But
okay.
I'm looking at. I might even purchase it for some reasons. Like I might actually get a license to purchase it. I have reasons why I may want to do that for personal reasons. So
I'm considering the container version of that,
Okay. Mhm.
and diving into containers, and then with Cloudflare tunnels, I think you can really do some cool, like
Ooh.
closed network type stuff and still remotely access your stuff.
I would probably, No Machine, Dan Simmons says, is another as is Simple Help. So that to keep that in mind, I guess. I don't know about that one. So the one thing I like is their pricing schedule is really pretty nice. So I do appreciate that as well. Like their the cost, it's not like TeamViewer prices, which were just ridiculous. So yeah, check that out if you need a remote machine management. I don't know if that's what RMM stands for, but a remote take remote control of a desktop. So if you have people in your life that insist on asking you all the time for help with their systems, this might be a way to go. And this
Very interesting warning they've got on top of their web page.
Yeah, so people have been using that apparently. I was actually going to make a joke about that earlier, but I couldn't squeeze it in.
So you've actually tried that, have you, Nate?
Yep.
Did you say?
I just did yesterday, and I was pretty excited.
Right. All right.
They even have an app image that works on Raspberry Pis. Ooh. So, something to think about. It's very cool. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to kick out there before I... Oh, Shickle. Fire away.
So it's a relatively simple one. It's a GNOME Circle app, and it's called Boatswain or Boatswain. I'll post it in the. It's essentially a Stream Deck controller software. There, basically, you can set up little hotkeys there you press the buttons, and they'll do different things on your system. It's actually pretty handy. It's very simple and straightforward. You just select which square you want to do what and what you want it to open, whether you want it to mute things or open an app or...
Really?
Great.
So now you just... Thank you for that. I knew there was something that existed out there. but I wasn't really sure. This might actually put me over on maybe getting one of those little Streamdeck things to, maybe make me slightly less stupid. It might make me worse. I don't know at doing these live streams. So how have you used it? Because you could probably use it for anything you want. It wouldn't have to be, because probably some sort of macros control.
Yeah, I was hesitant on getting one, and I was, especially because I use like all 4 or 5 operating system types on any given day. And so having something on the Linux side covered was great. I use it to quickly pull up controls for my headphones.
Okay.
Because sometimes when I hop into a Discord call, I need my like game volume to be a certain amount and my headphones to be another amount. But also for it to quick open my my YouTube what's it called? The stream page where you get like the configuration and stuff like that. So that just opens me directly to that specific link, which I have set up through like a shortcut. I've got like a .desktop file that points to it. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool. And then I have one set to manage my brightness, just because sometimes dark mode doesn't always dark mode things. So yeah,
that's really cool.
It's pretty cool.
I knew
Quick
there was
mute.
something out there, and I didn't really keep track of it, and just kind of like, it's one of those like bits of information that you meant to file it, but it fell off the table, and then it like kind of may have gone into the garbage. One of those things, and so this is really great. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it does also have OBS integration too that works on. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Hence the Streamdeck portion of it.
Yeah, it quickly start streams. I also have one set to mute a specific audio device while recording. So it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Man. Thank you for that.
Maybe it's Boatswain, not Botswan, but I feel like Botswan sounds better than Boatswain. I don't know.
Maybe Boatswain?
Boatswain. It's Wayne's boat.
So
instead of Wayne's World.
Does anybody else have anything? Anything exciting?
I got more
Please.
of a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was trying to find the IP address of some of the stuff that I got in the house, and I use Angry IP Scanner. Is there a better one I could use?
I like
Is that what
Angry
it's
IP
called?
Scanner.
I'm
already sold on it now. So what is
You never used Angry IP Scanner?
I've never heard of it before.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought everyone used. I thought that was a commonplace one. Here, I'll post it up there. Yeah, so like if you got your Raspberry Pi plugged in, and you don't remember the IP address, you run Angry IP Scanner and it'll find it for you.
This is so cool.
I thought everybody did it because I can't stand that other one, Wireshark. It is that's too big. That thing's a monster. Like it's the most awesome program in the world, but it's like an operating system all in itself. So it's like, okay, I'm lost. And then I was running Angry IP Scanner, but evidently no one else has heard of it but me.
I've used it and I agree. Like it was like, where was this all my life? Like it's so much nicer. It's them going into your router, logging in, and maybe you get some metadata that can like pinpoint it if you click through enough.
Right.
It just slams all the IP addresses of everything on the network that's readable, and then gives you some hints of what it is and sometimes readouts of what it is. So
okay, so this is the best one on the market. I tried a bunch, and to me, this is the best one.
That's the best too. Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, Nate. AnyDesk is really, really, really awesome. If you want to try it.
Okay. AnyDesk. That's that.
For remote desktop. Yeah. To me, it was the easiest one to work. I've never had any issues with it. Well, you can actually do it in Chrome if you have a Gmail account.
Huh.
Believe it or not.
I actually have it installed, but I had a hard time getting it to work.
Oh, I wonder why.
Well, it could just be me.
Yeah, you never know.
It doesn't work on Wayland for obvious reasons, but yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe that's why. Because I know that Rustdesk kind of works on Wayland.
Yeah, if you use like a Chrome portal, like a web-based portal, yeah.
Thanks to Sean, by the way, a Boatswain or a Boatswain is a deck boss, a qualified member of the deck department. So that I guess that makes sense why they would call it that, because it
Boat
manages
deck.
the deck, the stream deck. Ah,
Clever.
oh my goodness.
That is clever, actually. I like those kind of things.
I tell you what, the thing about naming Linux things is that things are very cleverly named, but not in a way that anyone gets.
And they try to take that theme and put in every aspect of like salt. Like, here's your grain. Here's your like just call it something else. Can we not have to take this clever idea and like push it to the extreme that every
So
element of
funny.
your product has to have this
The
theme?
whole
Like,
thing.
yeah.
Every single function has a funny name.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, so the thing is, like, I have a lot of things on my network because I have all these smart devices. So smart devices, they're ESP32s that are on that control switches. Not that smart. I'm sorry for using that terminology. Anyway, so sometimes, like, when I add something, I'd like to be able to find it a little bit easier than searching through, like, the DHCP record thing when it hands them out, because it doesn't actually show me good information on that. So that might be quite handy. So cool.
I like that.
There's an Android one I've used for years called Fing, Fing. Literally been using it for probably 10 years. So
That's
in terms
Android?
of longevity, yeah. And it does the same thing. It identifies all the devices. It does a whole bunch of other stuff too, like monitoring and stuff that I don't really use. But
so is it also an IP scanner? Is that what it does?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
And I've used RustDesk as well. Sorry, I was away for a bit there. The one thing I didn't like compared to AnyDesk was that they don't have an Android client yet. And on my tablet, I was using AnyDesk with Android. And Colin,
Actually, I thought they did.
If they did, they just must have released it in the last month or so, because they didn't before. But Colin, I really appreciate that they have that.
Yeah, they got one.
Okay, they
I
must
just
have
went to the website because I could have sworn it was on my phone.
Because I used it 3 or 4 months ago, and they didn't have an Android app, at least at that point, at least that I could find. So.
It does seem like there's a lot of development activity going on with RustDesk. Like, they're actually, going where the puck, they're skating where the puck is going. I mean, because like they're very.
It's a pretty shameless clone of AnyDesk, so I don't know if AnyDesk is open source in some way. But yeah, because I've been using AnyDesk for years, and I don't know. I've always trusted it. They have their U.S. headquarters is in Tampa here near me, and I mean, they've always had sort of the honor system, and it's always just worked really well. It's very lightweight, but yeah, I thought RustDesk was cool because the pricing was better in the open source aspect of it. So.
Right.
AnyDesk is proprietary.
RustDesk is?
AnyDesk.
Oh no, I know. I know it's proprietary, but RustDesk is so similar that I don't know how they're developing it without some access to the AnyDesk code base, other than it's just like a literal ripoff. So even the random string for your device ID, like everything looks almost identical to AnyDesk.
Oh wow.
So
it could be that these companies, they piggyback, quote unquote, open source stuff, and then RustDesk is like bringing it back to.
I don't know.
Who knows? I've seen that.
Anyway, yeah, and it is funny. That's this. I don't know why remote support software is one of those areas of enterprise software that is so outlandishly expensive. Like, yeah, if you get,
I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
It's because the protocols to support the various forms are so nuanced and janky to compare. A lot of it hasn't been updated, that they have to do a lot of like custom patches, custom code, and then you run into the user management side, which is not inherently in the protocols. So they have to like slap that on top of it. And oh, by the way, make audio redirection, make it work flawlessly, and copy and paste from remote to host and host to remote work flawlessly. And each protocol that they're borrowing from to make it work has to like be solid. Like AnyDesk uses a deprecated audio like server from like real server from back in the day to help with the replay stuff. So they're doing some really exotic things to make it patch together to make it work what it feels like seamlessly. So that's the major reason why someone has to pay for all that development.
Gotcha.
For sure. Well, I have another one I think is pretty cool. I just started playing with it also. The Heroic Games launcher. Has anybody played with that? It's like another launcher that has a lot of different integrations to include now. I think it's up and going now, but there's an Amazon. Amazon apparently has games that you can, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you have access to games, and so you can actually access those on Linux through the Heroic Game Launcher. But like, so anything that's Lutris, anything that's Steam or Epic Games, there's a few others out there as well that you can launch those games through Heroic Game Launcher, and I think that's pretty cool as well. Does anybody here do much gaming?
Netflix has games now.
Do they?
Does anyone? Yeah, they offered them to me the other day.
Yeah.
I thought, how weird is that? I don't know what kind of games they are, but
they're just trying to pay those bills. They're trying to milk anything to mark
On
up.
Netflix, I've heard of like the trivia games. That's something
maybe that's it.
on there.
No, I've seen some games.
I
Yeah.
don't know how you'd play them though. I guess you'd have to be on your computer or phone.
They're all
to do it, maybe.
cloud streamed, I think. I think it's through I think they call it Amazon Luna service.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was tempted to buy a Luna controller just because the convenience is right there.
Oh, Heroic does GOG as well. Grand Old Games or Great Old Games.
That's awesome.
Yep. So does
And
all that stuff. It's
then-
kind of a nice all-in-one.
Apparently it works on the Steam Deck, so that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And then automatically integrates any games like into the Steam launcher. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's pretty darn spiffy. So if you want to have, I find though that like I have more games than I think I'll ever even play, and sometimes I get a little sad when I think about like, oh, this might be the last time I ever play this game. Speaking of games, has anyone played the Stanley Parable? It's pretty funny. It's very silly, but it's very funny.
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't played it myself.
Yeah. So,
like you said, there are so many everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like can't get that all.
We are something with choice. I don't know what there's a word somebody used.
Spoiled with
choice. There we go. I like that.
For choice, I think is what they say.
Spoiled for choice. Whatever. Okay, this isn't a great application. Maybe for a lot of people, it's a very limited number. But there's an application called Prospect Mail. It is basically an Outlook client, sort of. It isn't. It looks like it looks and acts and feels like Outlook. So if you have an Office 365 account, you can use this. Not the home, but for the business one. Maybe the home will work. But when you have the through, you have to look it up yourself. But anyway, it works great. So I can do all my, instead of having to use Windows for a lot of stuff at work, I can use this, and it's like I'm using Outlook, except maybe it's slightly faster than the actual Outlook client. And it works really well. I can access all my mail stuff. I can do whatever. It's pretty darn great. And I'm very grateful to be able to use this thing and manage my email from Linux. So Prospect Mail. I'm very, very pleased with how well it works. So if you have a need to be on an Office 365, work account thing, it works pretty great for that. I got a link for that. I'll put in the. So
does it look modern, or does it look 90s, or how does it look?
So it's actually just basically a web wrapper for
okay.
So, but it works in such a way that it doesn't feel like a web wrapper. So it's an Electron app basically, and
okay.
If you can have like a personal Microsoft account, whatever, probably just use Thunderbird is fine. But if you have to use like in the enterprise,
Yeah, Thunderbird.
This is great.
Thunderbird works well for me. Has its quirks, but
oh sure. Everything has
that's
its quirks.
everything though, isn't it? Yeah.
So is there anybody else? I know Swift or Prophetic, if you had any, or Cruise, if you had any applications you wanted to throw out there that you'd like to share. Got, I think, time for a couple more. At this rate, maybe several more.
I really like Bookworm. It's a cool for EPUB or other file formats if you read books on your computer, stuff like that. I really like it a lot. It's kind of sort of similar to Calibre. And Foliate is another of those softwares that I really like as well.
Bookworm.
Just really big on two things that wish I had more time with is Distrobox. If you really want to experiment with software from a different repository, Distrobox really makes that possible. So if you want to try something in AUR in your Debian-based system or Ubuntu-based system, Ubuntu or Debian, and want to tap into the AUR, you can use Distrobox, and it's really cool things that can be done with that. And then the second is the Podman Manager, which is like a GUI front end or it's called Podman Desktop. And basically, if you want to dive into containers, and instead of like doing everything through the terminal, there's some nifty little front end GUIs that can help a little bit with that, and you can actually register it with like Docker on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pull some stuff from Docker Hub and pull it into and have it managed by Podman. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
So
and you can manage your Distrobox stuff with Podman Desktop as well. So
that's cool.
It's nice.
So I have played with Podman a little bit, just for like Docker images, just because I just want to run some things a lazy way. So I did appreciate that.
Now let's throw in there LocalSend, which is what Infinitely Galactic was talking about on his recent video. LocalSend, it's called. Share files to nearby devices, free open source cross-platform.
Ooh.
Sounds fancy.
Is that like Warpinator or Wormhole?
He was saying it works better than Warpinator, and he reckons this one is solid.
Nice.
So he reckons Warpinator was not working quite as good as what he would have expected, but he's come across this one, and he reckons so far from his experience it's been quite solid. So I'll probably look at giving that a go myself.
How would you compare that to KDE Connect?
So one advantage of LocalSend,
he didn't.
One advantage of LocalSend is that it's Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, and iOS clients.
Ooh, FlatHub. It's a FlatHub too. Nice.
Yes, it is. That's correct. It is a FlatHub. Yep.
That is cool. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. No worries.
That's actually really neat.
Yeah, all right. It is about that time. So next week, thank you thank you everyone for your applications. Really appreciate that. Had a few others here just in case we ran out of time, but we didn't. If we didn't have enough. So that's great. I have a lot of things now to play with. LocalSend. That's definitely I think that's what I'm going to play with for sure.
Yeah.
An angry IP scanner. That's a Boatswain.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that. Angry IP.
Yeah, that's a neat one. So excellent. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to be checking a lot of those out. So thank you. All right. So coming up next week, it's an open mic night. So if you have any suggestions for topics, maybe put them in that news feed too on Telegram, or you can send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com or anything else. But any topics that are burning a hole in your pocket, if that's what they do, or they're an earworm, I don't know. Be sure to bring those. So for a little housekeeping, December is very rapidly approaching. So I don't have it all scheduled out exactly how I'm going to do this yet, but I want to take a look back and review of the last year and maybe talk about the different distributions that we went through. I think that might be kind of fun to do, and like which distributions are you still using or whatnot, or where are they now? So anything back for 2023 that we tried, I think it might be fun to look back. And also, I want to take one Saturday and look back at the different applications and see how many applications that we talked about we're still using. So I have a list of all that stuff that I'll bring up, and I think that might be kind of fun. So if think about it, we'd have to bring up every application, but it would be neat to like kind of just talk about some of that stuff that we did in the past year, and then so then I may take like around Christmas, New Year's, maybe one of those days. At least like one of those weekends off, since we won't have. This year, I think Christmas doesn't fall on a Saturday. No, it does not. So we don't have any interference there. Anyway, so yeah, those. Think about the different things we talked about. If you also have any topics, whatever, they might be fun to like revisit. That really stuck out. That might be fun too. And of course, if you have any suggestions for discussion. Distributions, applications, poll ideas. Thank you, Sean. Please send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com or tag Eris or something like that in the group. So in the Telegram group or Discord or wherever you like. All right. Now it's about that time for last call. Eric, if you're still there, you're still a core member of the Distro Hoppers Digest? Maybe you're not there because you're still off. I can come back to you. So Steve's very own, he didn't hop on the stream, but he was, and maybe he still is in YouTube, but he does a live stream most Sunday mornings, it seems. Starts at 8:15. I think it's now sliding to like 8:30 Central. So if you want to check that out, he is now officially retired. So Linux and streaming is his life now, and that's going to be all Steve is going to be doing. So make sure you check him out. Not in the weird way, but check out his live stream and be sure to give him a hard time. If he's doing it tomorrow. I don't know. He may be taking this week off because he's celebrating his retirement.
Okay.
So, what's that?
Also, tomorrow, ALE, the Atlanta Linux folks are going to be on as well. They're really helpful if you're having any issues with Linux.
I'm
like on it pretty often.
3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern, is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a lot longer.
We haven't seen Mark is it Mark? Yeah, we haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah, Mark has been here in a while. Maybe things got busy. That's all right. People come and go. It's all good. So I guess I'll do the plug for Eric since he's a little busy right now. But you can check out his podcast called Distro Hoppers Digest, and he does. They do like every month they release an episode of a different distribution that they do. And so I don't know what he's doing this week, but I guess he had to bail. So, but check out Distro Hopper's Digest. Not sure what's coming up next, but Eric does. But he's going to keep it a secret until next time. Make sure you check out Linux User Space. The next episode is the XFCE history. But I think Monday, but not yet. Monday will be a fresh topic episode with a touch of history. So check that out. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. I think we're recording this week sometime. So be sure to check that out, whenever you feel like it. So this last time we talked about, actually it was thank you advertising, but there's a pillow, a Bluetooth pillow that had speakers in it, or Bluetooth speakers in a pillow, a memory foam pillow, and that brought up some conversations. So if you have, if you need to sleep quietly or sleep with music, I don't know. I know we talked about that and some other things. I have a website called cubicle8.com. I do stuff, and I recently published an article on setting up a Teams room. Like this is like a corporate environment, Teams room, the easy way. I had lots and lots of headaches in trying to set up a Teams room. It was, the documentation is terrible. Like it's so terrible. Logitech or Microsoft couldn't actually help me out. So I found if you want to install the application for like setting up like a console-based, Teams room appliance thing, you have to find a hidden Skype room system that you can't actually search for, but there's a way, and I found it the roundabout way. But basically, in one particular shell PowerShell script, I noticed something about a Skype room system, so I did searches based on that, which led me to like somebody else's blog post that was a link to the Microsoft Store that has a Skype room system, which you cannot access directly anywhere on any help files at all. So you have to it was a big pain in the tuchus. So anyway, I set up a couple of Skype room systems, and I wanted to document the process because I'm going to have to use it again. I'm setting up another room in another the Texas plant. So anyway, so I did that. I created that mostly for me, but anybody else who might need to set up in a corporate-ish environment, Skype room system, Teams room. Anyway, so those are the instructions. It is one of my least popular articles ever, but it's probably the most valuable one that I've ever written. So, there we go. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation in both this Zoom meeting here or on the YouTube stream, and suffering through all the different technical difficulties that I tend to have. Although, actually, this week wasn't too bad. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in our personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas.
Bye.
Later.
See ya. See you later.